First of all, I want to thank y'all for being here. I want to thank my neighbor to the north, Attorney General Bailey, for joining us, Nick Bronny, the SG, and all his staff, all the work that they've been doing on this. And I want to thank Amelia. You want to stand up here with us? That's fine. Amelia Ford, who goes to high school here in Arkansas, outside of Jonesboro, and really appreciate her being here. We are having this press conference today to announce that I, along with my colleague here and 4 other states, for a total of 6 states, I think is what we have now, filed suit in the Eastern District of Missouri challenging the rule change by the Biden administration to Title IX. And we have seen this coming for a while, and we've been considering what options we have to stop this rule. Now, just to provide some context, so this past weekend, there was a track meet, a Division III contest in New York, and you had a man who now identifies as a woman competing against women. Now, he, by all accounts, to be fair, was a middle-of-the-pack track athlete as a male. But now, in the track meets against women, he has set the Division III 400-meter record. It should be noted that the time that he ran would qualify as last place in the men's, but set a record in the women's. Now that's in New York. And a lot of people might say, that's New York. It's not Arkansas. Some people say this is a solution in search of a problem. That's ridiculous. Usually those people sort of agree, and so that's their last, that's the last place they can go and not agree with us, is to just say, well, this is a solution looking for a problem. But let me say this, I've learned a couple things. Number one, everything that starts on the East and West Coast ends up here. And the Biden administration rule is going to make sure that this ends up here. Because this rule does not just apply in New York. This rule applies everywhere. The reality is the vast majority, I don't even think it's close. And I'm not talking in Arkansas. It could be 80% in Arkansas. But I think nationally, the vast majority of people think this whole thing is just nonsensical. They don't understand it. My wife asked me this morning, who's for this? And all of that is true, but none of that is a reason to file a legal suit. For a legal suit, it can't just be ridiculous, nonsensical, hard to believe, outrageous, what have you. There has to be a legal basis. So what's our legal basis for challenging this? Well, there are several. I think we could win on any. I think we will win on all. The first one is statutory construction. This is not a new law. It's been around for decades, and the meaning of the statute has been completely different. It has been about opening opportunities for women, not shutting them down. You know, we've seen this sort of administrative play by the Biden administration in another area. Just last week, 2 weeks ago, we were dealing with the law that protects pregnant women in their employment. And now that law is being interpreted to ensuring the right to abortion. Something similar is going on here. This law was put into place to protect the rights of women and to provide opportunities. So the interpretation of the Biden administration is completely inconsistent with the statute and the way it's been interpreted for decades. So there's statutory challenge. Then there's a constitutional challenge. There's a First Amendment challenge. You're compelling people to speak in a particular way or risk some sort of harassment charge if you don't call people exactly what they want to be called. You also have what I call the Schoolhouse Rock constitutional argument. I think more people could benefit by watching what we did in the 70s, where you learned the fundamentals of changing the law. There's a process for this. It is well articulated in the Constitution. It doesn't change because you're frustrated with Congress. It doesn't change because you can't get elected to Congress the people you want to change the law. It does not change based on any of that. The process is the same, and you got to follow it, and they're not following it. So there's a constitutional objection there. Then there's also the constitutional objection. It's called the major questions doctrine, which is related to this process argument. If it's a major question, it's got to go to Congress, not through the regulatory scheme. And then finally, the arbitrary and capricious standard that we often challenge administrative actions using. What does that mean? Well, it's arbitrary and capricious because it's been interpreted a particular way for a long, long, long time, and then all of a sudden it changes. Arbitrary and capricious. Also, there were numerous comments that laid out why there are problems with this rule change. They were ignored. Arbitrary and capricious. So, look, I don't think it takes a lot of explaining as to why everyday people think this is odd, think this is wrong, think this is outrageous. But now I've provided to you the legal basis, and I'd like to welcome General Bailey to come up and say a few words, and then we'll hear from Ms. Ford. Thank you.
First of all, let me thank General Griffin for his leadership on this important issue, for his partnership with Missouri and the coalition of states that we are both leading in this legal challenge to President Biden's attack on the equal rights of women. For a half decade, this federal statute has protected women's rights. President Biden is perverting the plain text of the statute in favor of a radical transgender ideology. He has no constitutional authority to do so. There is direct harm to not only the states, but the private plaintiffs involved. I'd like to point out, first and foremost, reiterate what General Griffin said. President Biden has no constitutional authority to rewrite statutes. The plain text of the statute speaks for itself, and there's been a well-settled meaning that the word discrimination based on sex means binary decision between male and female gender. President Biden's attempt to re-legislate that issue through the flick of a pen in an administrative rule is unconstitutional. His attempt to expand the concept of discrimination based on sex to include radical transgender ideology is a perversion of the plain meaning of the statute. We are going to fight back and put a stop to this attack on women's rights. As a father, as a husband, this is personal to me. And we're proud to have partnered with the state of Arkansas, General Griffin, and other like-minded state attorneys general. I also want to thank Ms. Amelia Ford for her courage in stepping up and joining us in this important fight. And I'd like to turn it over to her for remarks.
My name is Amelia Ford. I play varsity basketball at my high school in Brookland, Arkansas. First, I want to thank Attorneys General Griffin and Bailey for inviting me to speak here today and for all their work protecting young women like me. I know I speak on behalf of women across the country in expressing gratitude for your courage standing up for the true meaning of Title IX and equal opportunities for women. A few days ago, some officials in Washington, D.C. issued some rules forcing schools to let certain boys access girls' locker rooms and sports teams. Now, whenever a boy identifies as a girl, that boy can come into my locker room where I change. He can use the bathroom where I need privacy. He can even get placed into my hotel room with me overnight when my team travels. These same officials have also said that these boys must be allowed to compete against me on the basketball courts and even have the ability to take away my spot to play on these teams. That is not okay. You don't just become a girl by what you feel or by what you think. The government should not force us to disregard common sense and reality, especially not by using Title IX, a law meant to protect women's opportunities. I've worked incredibly hard to compete on the varsity team and be the best I can be. I love sports, and I know the importance of having privacy in locker rooms, showers, and overnight trips. I don't want that taken away. I'm glad that I live in a state where there are laws that protect women's sports and women's only spaces. But the new rules threaten our state laws. So, I'm joining a lawsuit to ask a court to step in and stop these new changes. I don't want any girl to lose her right to a fair playing field or her right to use a safe place to change. I'm so grateful for those standing against this rule today, and I hope many more will stand up with us because we matter. Thank you.